All right, welcome to the third episode of the Mach Speed F1 Podcast. This time we're going to be covering Australia. Yes, this episode is late. I blame global warming. Uh, but anyways, we're just going to go ahead and get into the thick of it. So, starting off with the race overview. So, Australia was actually pretty exciting for once, mainly because Max didn't win. Uh, that's a good time for everybody, except for Max fans, of course. Although it is kind of disappointing that he lost the way he did, because honestly, I think Carlos could have won on merit. I
I,
think he was fighting him.
he was fighting him, and this is even before he really had the issue from what Red Bull and Max talked about post race. It's just like Carlos was there. This wasn't a Max Verstappen classic pulling away our second half after lap one. This was he is there within a second. And we don't see that too often nowadays with Max Verstappen leading a race. So that showed that Carlos had something there.
Yeah, Carlos in general has just been on fire this entire season.
We need to defend
Yeah,
this.
yeah, because by now Japan has already happened, so that's an episode we'll actually be recording Japan immediately after this. But yeah, evidence once again continues in that direction. But otherwise, honestly, a lot of thrilling overtakes, I would say.
Yeah.
Some teams had some greater struggles than others. But we'll be covering those a little bit more detail later. Still, Ferrari had a great weekend, got their first 1-2 since 2022 season opener, for a little bit of reference. And of course, Lando secured his first podium of the season, so, happy about that one, because, I mean, it also shows that, and even during that race, Lando was giving Leclerc a run for his money. And this is McLaren, where they said they wouldn't, quote unquote, be the most competitive in the beginning of the season, yet here they are. So my question is, it's like, if this isn't impressive for you guys, what will be? I think they've got something.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. We came into this weekend, and throughout pretty much practice and quality, McLaren did not look on the same step as Ferrari. It was pretty evident at that time, like coming into it outside of his last run, which we will not talk about for reasons. But then also, it's just like Leclerc gets by. We talked. You foresaw that happening at some point during the race of Lando being overtaken by Leclerc, but Lando stuck with him. That's the part that shows like what's happening here with that McLaren, because Lando's out doing it more than Oscar right now. He just is.
Well, yeah, that's something we'll probably be covering in more detail when we get to Suzuka. Yeah, McLaren have shown impressive levels of pace. Another team that did quite well. I think I'll be covering them in particular a little bit later, perhaps. But Haas in general has been also very good out the gate, and they're actually getting upgrades a little bit earlier than we expected. Haas, if I'm correct, they're actually getting upgrades in China.
I thought it was Miami.
I think it may be pulled forward to China. I know that RB, McLaren, and Haas are all getting upgrades the next 3 races. I know that for certain.
Yeah. I will say, I've not expected this from Haas. Haas to me has been really the most impressive non-top 5 team.
Yeah, well, yeah, they've been the most unexpected surprise in a good way. I mean, like I run an anti-Haas agenda, but honestly, like in this moment, I don't have anything bad to say, and I'm just like I'm actively looking. Yeah, I'm looking for things to say bad about them, but they're just not telling me anything.
Just can't. Well, it's like the one thing I could say bad originally. And this was preseason when they got rid of Gunther. That I was not the biggest fan of, but it's turning out it might be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, a lot of people believe that Gunther Steiner, while he's haha Netflix funny guy type thing, a lot of people didn't believe he was the greatest leader, and so honestly, those people are kind of being vindicated right now because it definitely seems like Io Komatsu is doing a very good job. Props to him running Haas like he is. he seems to be very comfortable with what he's doing. He's communicating better in general. And he's not trying to blame anybody or anything like that, which Steiner was, well, notorious for doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so,
I also say,
honestly, he's just led to a better atmosphere at that team. They definitely seem
yeah,
to be much more cool-headed
happier.
and confident now. Yeah, I mean, like, and here's the thing. Sometimes a simple morale boost can make the biggest difference.
Yeah. It also helps that they really, in Haas's history, this is really their best driver lineup with Kevin and Nico. That to me already is from a driver
Yeah,
standpoint, a fairly strong lineup in
yeah,
terms of what we see across the grid. They're not number one. I'm not saying that, but like they're to me is like a mid level driver lineup.
I mean, okay, so hang on. If I had to rate the lineups, so the
Oh
top
god,
five
we got to a
teams,
tangent.
the top five teams right now in the standings, I think all have better lineups. I think Alpine has a better
Yeah.
lineup. Um, what? I'm saying Alpine, yeah, their car is terrible, but their two
Yeah, that's why
drivers.
that's why I gave that look. Like, yes, they have a better
Yeah,
lineup, but
yeah,
just
yeah.
Alpine.
I genuinely feel bad for Gasly and Ocon having to drive French tractors around a racetrack right now because, I mean, they're both race winners, podium sitters. Just last year, both of them managed to snag a podium. They're both
Yeah.
competent drivers. They just have a nightmare of a car underneath them. But, anyways, back to the Haas discussion. Yeah, they have a solid lineup, but I honestly would put it like seventh best right now. At most, maybe even eighth, and because I would put them above Williams and I would put them above Sauber right now. But I don't know if I would be able to put them above RB if Yuki has been performing really well and Danny Rick. Well, and the engineers are suggesting that he gets a new chassis, so he's getting one in China. So there may be a possibility that Danny Rick's horrific performance in the season has been due to a poor chassis, which is a possibility. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because Esteban Ocon had a similar situation in 2021. And, well, once he got that chassis swapped, he went from doing terrible to doing great. Like, he immediately bounced back. So sometimes it may just be the Kono chassis change. Speaking of, we'll be getting into a certain situation involving another chassis later. But yeah, props to Carlos Sainz and Ferrari. Carlos is killing it. I genuinely think at this point, Ferrari is kind of looking at their contracts and thinking, I wouldn't be surprised if they're considering maybe we made a mistake here. Like
Yeah,
Carlos is
it's looking
making
like
them regret their choices right now.
yeah, it's looking like that right now, especially with Leclerc having a very poor start for what he's done
Yeah.
in recent seasons.
Oh yeah. Some people are actually I've seen them saying Ferrari fired the wrong driver, which I think is a little bit harsh to Leclerc, but
It's a bit early. If this
it's a bit
continued through the
early.
whole season, I could see it if this went through the whole season. But we're what really 3-4 races into a year.
Yeah. Yeah, so moving on, we're going to cover the star of the weekend. And I honestly have two choices that could go either way, and both are pretty obvious. But, Pat, I want to hear yours first.
Smooth operator.
Yeah, that would have been one of my choices. And yeah, Carlos Sainz nailed it this weekend.
Yeah,
It's
this
still baffling that this is only his third win in the entire sport.
it was the perfect weekend for Carlos Sainz coming back from his surgery. First race back, there was rumors that it wasn't even gonna be him driving the car. It was gonna be potentially Ollie Behrman again, which would have been interesting to see. But he comes out, puts it on the front row in qualifying, which we haven't really seen Sainz do much of. And then he goes out, overtakes Max, and hangs on for the win, even though Max did retire the car, but he still won the race.
Yeah, I mean, funny thing is with Carlos, there were rumors going around that the car was going to be built in more of a style that Leclerc would prefer this
Mhm.
year, but Carlos has a measure on him right now. So, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe his style changed. Maybe Carlos is really just going in full charge because he wants to leave a good impression for the other teams, which, I mean,
If he is,
Yeah.
he's doing a great
Oh,
job.
oh, oh, yeah, he's absolutely doing a brilliant job. Um, but I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm giving Star of the Weekend to Haas for managing to get both their drivers in the points, if I remember
I thought you were
correctly.
gonna do something. I thought
Yeah,
you were about to do something else, and I was gonna slander you for it. But I'm not gonna slander this one. I see this. I see this,
yeah,
and I like it because Haas is the first bottom five team to get both cars into the points.
yeah. And well, like we mentioned, of course, you said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Those bottom five teams are going to need every single point they can get because, again, clear gap between the top five and the bottom
Mhm.
five. So each point is going to count. And
The
honestly,
funny,
I think Haas has already made enough points currently to make sure they're not last in the constructors. Because I'm sorry, Alpine, but at this point, unless you do something
and Sauber.
drastic, yeah. Sauber, okay. Sauber, we're gonna get to. We are going
I'm
to
gonna
get to
get to that
Sauber.
later.
Yeah. But
But
yeah,
the funny
Haas is
thing
doing a
is,
brilliant job.
those 3 points that they got from this race could be the 3 points that save them from a position drop.
Oh yeah, and I mean we've seen, especially in recent seasons, like every single point counts. Like Alfa Romeo narrowly beat Aston Martin in 2022, and they won on countback because they tied on points. So I mean, every single point you get can make the world of a
Yep.
difference. And so managing to get both their cars in the points was a very good achievement. Props to the drivers, props to the team. They definitely appear to have well, I would say this. Haas has always felt like they've been in like troubled waters, the best way to describe it, but now it just feels like with their current driver lineup being, like you said, the strongest they've had yet, with Ayo Komatsu just stepping gracefully into the leadership role, it just feels like the team has finally has some smooth sails that they can operate with right
Mhm.
now. They don't have any money troubles thanks to their Money Grand sponsorship and other
And
sponsors.
Chipotle.
Oh yeah, and Chipotle, of course. But yeah, again, props to Haas. They're killing it. But speaking of killing it, we're gonna move on into flop of the weekend, and what certainly isn't killing it is Sauber with their pit stops, and that's why they're my flop of the weekend. Because like I think, had they not completely fumbled their pit stops, Bottas could have gotten points. Like he had a great
Yeah.
qualifying, put it like what 13th or something like that, and then was showing some good pace, and then he had a 30-plus second pit stop because they just they just can't do anything apparently. I guess,
Mhm.
which I bet some people would say I'd like to see you do better, and I would say yes, I would fail miserably. But I mean, this is the top echelon of motorsport; they can't be making mistakes like this, especially since
Yeah.
this team has been around for longer than I've lived. Like they don't have any excuses when it comes to this kind of
Yeah.
thing. But
That was be mine, but I had a backup one because I feel like you were gonna do that. I had a backup.
okay,
Mercedes F1 team.
yeah,
A double DNF in a track where they easily could have potentially had fourth. Maybe if they got the strategy right and he wasn't being held up by a wide card named Chad Alonso.
Yeah, that whole Russell Alonso situation, we have our own topic on that a
But
little bit later. But yeah, Mercedes just lack of reliability with
which is weird
Lewis.
because their engine used to be, if not still, the most reliable on the grid.
Oh yeah, I mean that engine was like Superman. It just could easily just push through anything, and it felt invincible. But apparently, he met its kryptonite down under this weekend. Well, not this
Hmm.
weekend, but a couple weekends back. At this point, it's been almost a month, I think. At this point, that's how long it's
He's
been.
been busy.
But yeah, we've had a lot of things going on as of recent. But glad we are back at it again. Anyways, though, yeah, I don't blame you for choosing Mercedes. I think that's a pretty safe bet, all things
Hmm.
considered. Moving on into our next topic, the biggest WTF moment. I suspect I already know what yours is, but feel free to go for it, and I'm gonna go with mine after.
Williams, I don't like you anymore.
Yeah, again, that is also another topic which we will be covering in full in just a bit. But yeah, I don't blame you for choosing that one. I would say actually for me, Max's DNF because I mean
Yeah.
this man has been unstoppable since Australia 2 years prior, and only now does something suddenly happen and his car just has a mechanical failure. Like that's so
Mm-hmm.
unexpected. Like they've been
No one
so
saw this coming.
bulletproof. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean, Max is just a very stable driver. That car has been exceedingly reliable in all this time, and suddenly massive mechanical failure, and it's
Yeah.
a costly one. Now, granted, I still think Max is winning this title unless Ferrari steps up their game and Red Bull continues to fumble. Which I mean, you know, while unlikely by a good margin, I do think there is an outside shot should the stars
For now.
align for Carlos to win the world championship. Again,
Yeah.
outside chance, not very likely, but it's a
Needs a lot of help.
possibility. It needs a lot of help and a lot of good fortune going their way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Carlos is he's on fire right now, and so I think he's
Yeah.
going to continue to be a thorn in Max's side for the rest of the season. And the mechanical failures are not going to be doing him any favors at all. Still, again, very, very shocking to see that. I mean, he only lasted a couple of laps before that happened. And well,
I
usually,
think 5 laps.
yeah, usually with Max, though, when he's complaining about something, it's something minor, and like he still proceeds to put in like the fastest lap immediately
To be fair, he
after.
complains every race, if we're being honest.
Well, yeah, but that's also just props to Max for his continuous search for improvement. So it's like, what can we do to improve upon this further? And he's a
What can we do
very
to become perfect?
Oh yeah, like he's constantly pursuing that, which is honestly how you remain on top. You don't get complacent like other teams. Mercedes, you just can't get complacent like that because it can very much cost you, like put you years behind in terms of development, where you're making an unstable car year after year. Not calling out any teams, Mercedes. So yeah, anyways, moving on. So we were talking about Williams here and there, but before we get to that, we're going to be discussing the moment with Fernando Alonso because we saw like a pretty big split between two sides. Of course, those advocating for
It's
Alonso and those not so much. I honestly just consider this to be a certified Alonso moment, honestly,
mm,
which is why I've titled it Alonso moment because I mean, this is the same guy who intentionally sabotaged Lewis during qualifying in 2007 Hungary, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
And like, Alonso is petty. Okay,
yeah.
he's a villain by his own admission. And let's face it, everybody loves a good villain. Everybody loves Darth Vader. He's awesome, right? Everybody loves Thanos in Marvel, right? Okay, Alonso is that kind of
We
villain.
do.
He's Thanos? I mean, everybody likes him as a cool villain and everything. Obviously, his plan to, split the galaxy in half wasn't exactly a great plan, but this is an F1 podcast, not a Marvel one.
Why did I open my mouth and just say anything? Moving on.
Yeah, I mean, you're
I
you're
want to hear your
talking,
take first.
yeah. So, I gotta be honest, that was Alonso's fault. Like that, I fully blame Alonso because he knew what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. This is a man who is known to cheese the rules whenever he can. Like in Sochi 2021, just recently, this is only like 3 years ago. He intentionally went off the track and took that extra lane so then he would be able to move forward further. And he did that, and he pulled it off. And it's like, technically, under the rules, he's allowed to do that, but that was entirely unnecessary. But
Yeah.
again, like I said, that's just an example of this guy cheesing the rules as best he can to give himself an advantage, which, I mean, hey, I can't say I blame the guy, because that's honestly, like, I would say though that's not very Formula One like in that aspect, but that is very NASCAR like in that
Mm-hmm.
aspect. It is like that in Formula One as well, but mainly in the engineering side. For example, Ferrari's engine a couple of years back
We
is
don't
a.
talk about it. We don't talk about it. It's another time nor the place, Mage.
I'm just saying that as an example, but yeah, Alonso, I think, got a little bit too cheeky for his own good. I
Yeah.
think the penalty is fair, and I'm actually glad that he did get that kind of penalty because for quite a few years we've seen drivers get penalties that really haven't been that consequential, but this one actually hurt him. This took him down several positions and cost the team points. So that's really
Yeah.
going to discourage him from doing so in the future. You know, that's real consequences. So I'm happy to see it turn out the way it did, in all honesty, even though I know a lot of people are upset about it, particularly, of course, Spanish fans. But there aren't as many Spanish fans that are upset, mainly because, like I've mentioned, I definitely am starting to
A
notice a
certain winner.
shift. Yeah, because let's say they were less upset about that, and more happy that Carlos Sainz won. Which I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, can't say I blame them. Like if Logan Sargent won, I think Pat and I would be very happy to see, a driver from our home country win. However, of course, he didn't participate in the Australian GP. And speaking of, we'll just segue right into that.
I
With
didn't even get my take. I didn't even get my take on Alonso.
okay, fine. Well, we'll go back. We'll go back and discuss the Alonso
I
take.
let you go first, and I didn't even get a
Yeah,
take.
well, okay, yeah, go ahead.
So I do agree, Alonso 100% at fault. He knew what he was doing. We all knew what he was doing. I'm actually going to take the penalty was slightly a bit harsh. I'm going on this side of the
Yeah,
argument.
I actually would say it's quite fair, but go ahead.
Yes, obviously he deserved the penalty 100%. I'm not saying he deserved no penalty at all. I'm not trying to make that kind of argument because I've seen people try to do that. I'm just like, you're just dumb. I literally told someone that you were just dumb. But moving on. I actually think I would have gone with more like a 10-second time penalty because to me George could have avoided the wall and been fine. In my opinion, I was looking at
I disagree. That was kind of a really strange moment, and George is trying to take avoiding action. Plus, Alonso by now knows that George is penchant for fumbling on the final lap. So I mean, that I think was just a little bit too much. I will admit, watching George crash, I did find it funny because I mean, okay, let's take a look at the Australian GP.
you prey on his downfall.
Okay, so if I saw a race where Carlos Sainz and Lando were on the podium, and Carlos Sainz won, George Russell DNF'd in the final two laps, Max Verstappen wasn't even on the podium at all. And also, in all of this, Logan Sargent was not in the points, or in this situation, not even in the race. I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it is weird that it happened twice in such a short span of time.
It's happened. Wait, he's crashed 3 times.
Well, no. I'm talking about like this entire situation because like all that happening at the same
last
time.
lap.
Yeah, because Singapore last year, which
Yeah.
I actually would rate as Carlos's best performance, but Australia is a close second. He did kill it,
I
but
have it more Singapore second and Australia first
yeah, and that's fair. But back,
because I mean
yeah,
I'm gonna just put it this way real quick. This was the first time that Max, I mean, in recent memory, outside of early 22, where Ferrari was up there with them, that Red Bull was seriously challenged, unlike Singapore last year, where Red Bull was severely off the pace.
yeah, and I do agree with you on that one. But back to your opinion on Alonso and all that.
I mean, that was really, I just thought it was slightly too severe because I feel like Russell could have avoided the wall and finished the
Yeah,
race.
I definitely
That's
think
just
this.
my take.
I definitely think this is a case of stewards penalizing the outcome and not the action kind of
Yes,
situation.
this was definitely the outcome because I don't think he gets a 20-second time penalty if George does not crash out. I don't think that happens.
I agree with you on that. I will actually agree that had George not taken after maybe like gone off the track, he still would have gotten a penalty.
Probably
But
5, honestly.
I think he would have gotten like 10, considering. Well, it really just
I
depends
could
on
have seen.
how severe George's reaction would be in that moment. But again,
Yeah.
I do think this is a situation of penalizing the outcome and not the action. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on to uh, our sixth point, Williams woes. So, um, if you have been living under a rock for the past month, then you wouldn't know that Logan Sargent did not participate in the Australian GP due to the fact that Alex Albon crashed his car and broke his chassis in FP1. And so Williams, being a very fair and reasonable team, decided to immediately give Logan Sargent's chassis to Alex, kicking Logan out of his own car, which, you know, really sucks for Logan. I'm really reminded of that meme of like the two breakfasts, and like one is like a sandwich bear and all that, and then the other one is just the cutout remainder of the bread, and that's basically Alex and Logan, respectively, in this situation. Though I can't say I blame them entirely. I understand why they did it. And I respect James Vowell's transparency regarding the whole thing, saying, yeah, it was stupid that we didn't have another chassis and that we didn't have it with us. This is entirely on us. We feel really bad about it, but Alex is our best chance at getting points, and so we have to think about the team as a whole. We appreciate what Logan is doing here, allowing this, but I mean, like, that's gotta be soul destroying for Logan Sargent like that. Like, you're just thinking, oh, so the other guy messed up, and then I'm suffering the consequences for it. I know Pat was basically under consideration just burning his Williams merch on the spot, but yeah, it again very controversial for all the right reasons, and I understand people arguing both ways. I personally am on the side of I understand why Williams did what they did, and I get it. If I were in their shoes, I would probably do the same thing, but it still is extremely unfortunate for Logan, and I would say it's unfair, but of course, the team kind of has to come first in the situation. And I like to think, Red Bull, if Max crashed the chassis and they needed another one, they would take it from Checo. Let's be real. And to be fair, Alex, up until that point, had been demolishing him in qualifying and race throughout the entirety of Logan's rookie season and the beginning of this season. So, if they were hedging their bets on one of these two drivers to score points, they're going to put it on Albon. So, again, I understand why, but I don't think that necessarily makes it right. So, like, this is a situation where it's not really right or wrong. It's just kind of murky gray area. But, what's your take on it?
Those points really worked out for them, huh?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It was
started like that.
Oh yeah. To. I mean, it was for the chance that they would get points.
My mindset's more like this, and this is just the way that I've always seen things. If you do the crime, you do the time. You broke the car, you suffer the consequences of not having a car.
Yeah, which I get that.
Your argument of the team perspective, which I get that. We've talked about that in length, and I still 100% get why they did it. But to me, it's like, he broke the car. He shouldn't be able to have a brand new car when the team already messed up and not having another chassis, which why? Why would you not be prepared for something like this to happen in the first place and have a spare chassis? That's one thing. The other thing was Logan was this was FP1. Granted, like, we really didn't get to see Logan go, but I mean, he could have been on for a promising weekend.
Yeah, I will agree with you to an extent in that situation. It is unfortunate for Logan, but yeah. One thing that I will say is, like, James Vowell has admitted that really more than anything else is just due to the team's lack of resources, and also just like poor what's the word? Oh, poor logistics. There we go. And like, I do more than anything else appreciate James Vowell's transparency regarding all this, and
I was surprised that he's that transparent.
Oh yeah, I'm very surprised by that, but I respect and appreciate that, and I imagine he really hated having to give that news to Logan, and I'm quite certain he would have done that himself.
This is not even news to Logan. They asked Logan.
Yeah, and
at the same time, which I feel like they asked him as a courtesy instead of.
I do agree. More than anything, they probably asked him as a courtesy. I do. I bet.
I don't think I think it was like if he said no, it's like yeah, about that we already gave it to him. So
Well, I don't think they would have necessarily done that, but I think Logan knew what was best for the team, and is at least self-aware enough to recognize that Alex is better than him at the moment.
yeah,
And honestly, I think it's also a good sign for Logan because it shows that he's a team player. And
but
so, in the
it's
grand
also
scheme of
like
things,
it
yeah.
screws his confidence.
Oh no, like I mentioned, like that's an absolute confidence destroyer. Like, oh
Any
yeah.
momentum that he was really going to be carrying with him from the first two rounds of solid data to use to improve goes out the window
Oh yeah.
at that point.
As much as I hate to say it, at this rate, I do not see Logan Sargent remaining in
I've
Formula
told
One
you that already.
by next year. Like I
I've already
just
discussed that with you, and I'm not even gonna argue it like I did last season. This
eh,
point's like he has to show serious improvement, otherwise he's gone and likely for Kimi Antonelli.
yeah, and well, some might say, what about Kimmy and William? Well, no, what about Kimmy and Merck? Well, there's a
It's a bit
chance.
early right now.
That's what I say. There's a chance that Mercedes may be looking for another option, and I don't think it's Carlos Sainz. So this is going to be a little bit off topic, but
This is how many championships he has.
they're bringing Ayrton Senna back from the dead. Yeah, in all seriousness, Mercedes. I think it's becoming a more apparent possibility that Sebastian Vettel could be returning, which I gotta say, I kind of hope it happens because it would be the
The
funniest
amount
role
of teasing
reversal.
he's done for is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a genuine possibility, but I think all of it hinges on how well
To
Kimi
be fair,
does in
if
Formula
this
2.
wasn't happening, he would have denied it immediately. He hasn't denied it.
And he's discussed
He's
open
more
talks.
confirmed it in the sense that they've had talks.
Yeah, which is interesting. But of course, I think all of this truly hinges on one man. Well, he's not a man yet, actually, but he's getting there. Kimi Antonelli in his career in Formula 2. Speaking of, so Pat, why don't you cover what happened in the Formula 2 race?
Yeah, so Formula 2 was another interesting weekend. It always seems to be. But and we did not have a clean sweep this weekend, unlike the last one that we had in Jeddah, which in Jeddah, just to remind everyone, it was not in Jeddah. Where
Yeah,
was it? It was Bahrain.
it was
It was
Bahrain where
Bahrain where
Zane
Zane
Maloney
Maloney.
just decided that he's the man now.
Yep. But Australia, I actually was surprised by the sprint race winner. It was Roman Stanek with Trident. That one
Yeah,
caught me off guard.
I don't remember if it was what. I don't remember if it was the start to the sprint or the feature
It
race,
was
but
the
I
feature. I know what you're talking about too.
yeah. I want to talk
I'm
about
gonna
this
get to
because
that.
I
I'm
saw that part, but yeah, when you get to that, I want to talk about that because that was
I'm gonna get to that
mm.
because um it was a very interesting start because I mean off the start Dennis Hauger had an amazing start against Kimi Antonelli on the run down the turn one where Kimi, who we all thought was going to run away with this. Well, Mage and I talked about this. Mage and I were like, Kimi could run away with this race immediately. That did not happen at all. Hauger took the lead, never really looked back too much until he didn't win. But the biggest thing was Zach O'Sullivan and Stanek were left spinning around because of an ART driver. And I'll
Yeah.
leave it to Mage.
Yeah, that was at the very start of the race, like before they even made it to turn one, right? This is
Yep.
that incident. Yeah,
This was at the end of the pit lane.
yeah. So, for anyone who's been in an F1 game open lobby, it was a real open lobby moment right there. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, what's the name of the McLaren sponsor driver again? I can't remember
Uh,
the name off the top of my head. I'm terrible with names, by the way.
seconds. Oh, what's his name? I'm gonna find it. You keep going. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
find it.
he has the fugly livery with the blue, yellow, and the McLaren orange on the rear wing. But basically him and another driver just got obliterated and basically got shoved into the pit lane
Boratello.
exit. Boratello, yeah, that's it. I feel really bad for him. And what was the other driver that got knocked out in that moment? Zach O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Yeah, the two of them, two of the drivers I'm rooting for, funnily enough, both just get absolutely ruined and sent into the pit lane wall before they even make it to turn one because someone basically moved to the right where they shouldn't and basically got them both collected and just that was it for them.
Yeah.
And then, well, later on, Kimi Antonelli, along with a few others, in like the last three corners, had a little bit of a misadventure, particularly Kimi getting knocked into the gravel, and that was it
Around
for
the
him.
world, around the world.
Yeah, that one was not Kimi's fault. That was,
No.
yeah, I feel bad for Kimi in that situation. He's had
I mean, at the end of the day,
atrocious
he still
luck.
got fourth. He still got fourth at the end of the day, so it's still a good race to speak of.
Oh yeah, but still, F2 it's been very hectic.
Yeah, I mean,
From what I've been
looking
seeing.
at the standings right now, Zay Maloney leads by 15 points.
Yeah, Zay Maloney has been kind of killing it, and if he continues at this rate, I'm sorry, Joe, but I know you
Yeah.
have a race this weekend, and it's your first home race, but it's probably going to be your last.
But we did have the biggest news of the weekend. Ollie Behrman has points.
Yeah, I mean, he should have had points in Saudi because, he got pole and everything, but got a bit of a
He got
call
other
up.
points, which he cares about more.
Oh, yeah, and left a very good impression, and so I suspect that that guy is gonna be in the Haas next year, saying goodbye to Kevin Magnussen at that point. But that's much later for now. So
Uh,
Formula 2 has been honestly exciting. I
I have one
actually
more point
really
for
love the
F2.
new cars. Yeah.
Yeah, the F2 cars have been amazing. The one more note, PHM. You want to score some points? Maybe one at
Uh,
all?
no, they don't.
Because I told us the age, like seventh down, you got Dams at 26, Prema 26, Trident 22, ART 21, and then PHM 0. Like
Mhm.
seventh to 10th, it's a very good battle right there. You got 5 points separating about 4 teams, and then you have PHM who has nothing.
Well, I mean, PHM, I think, just wanted to emulate how the real Formula One teams operate, but they just chose the wrong team.
Yeah,
Alpine.
yeah.
But yeah, Alpine is they're struggling. But we'll be covering that in more detail in our next episode when we cover Japan, which we will be
For us, will be in about 5 minutes.
yeah, for us it'll be 5 minutes, and for you it'll probably be the next episode. 'Cause it's gonna be uploading like Australia and Japan at about the same time. And so it'll be just a double feature release. And then, of course, we got China immediately after that. And hopefully, we won't have a bunch of things on our schedule. We'll be able to
We should be
upload
fine.
at a decent time. I think we'll be able to do it this time around. I'm actually going to stay up for that race at 3 a.m. in the morning because I hate myself. So I'm going to have fun with that. But we'll be seeing you in the episode immediately after this and in China within a week's time, hopefully. I've been Mach Mage,
I've been Pat.
and we'll be seeing you in the next episode.